Hi there, I'm John Ivison. This week I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Dispatches from the front lines. I'm travelling with the Mark Carney campaign. I've been with Jagmeet Singh's campaign. I haven't been with the Conservative campaign because we can barely find them. But this week I'm with Carney. We are in New Westminster in the lower mainland of British Columbia. We started the day in Montreal. We flew to Victoria and then on to Vancouver and rallied in Surrey. So that's the campaign for now. This is my 8th general election campaign. Every election campaign brings me back to Timothy Krause's classic account of the George McGovern US presidential bid in 1972, the classic book, The Boys on the Bus. And Krause said in the book that what reporters know best is not the voters, but the tiny community on the press bus and plane, which he described as being a totally abnormal world that combines the incestuousness of New England hamlets with the giddiness of a mid-ocean gala and the physical rigour of the Long March. And I would say that's a pretty accurate description. The past week on the Carney Express has involved a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of being shepherded onto buses and planes, a lot of arriving like thieves in the night at some unremarkable hotel and leaving as soon as the sun's come up. Did you enjoy your stay? I was asked when I was checking out in Montreal this morning, and it was hard to say, to be honest. We'd only been there for 8 hours and 6 of them I was asleep. The days are a blur mostly. On Sunday after the rally in Nepean, we flew to Prince Edward Island, landing in the teeth of a cyclone, which was landing safely in the teeth of a cyclone. It was a huge relief to all of us who didn't really want to be the 8th paragraph in a PM's plane crash story. The next morning we flew to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and then we fell asleep in Quebec City. Once a day we get a chance to question the candidate for 15 minutes, which forms the basis for the day's news. Not everyone gets a question, so most days the reporters huddle. It looks a little bit like a conspiracy, but I think it's more really the fact that colleagues are trying to cooperate to ensure everybody's questions are covered. Most days the candidate will take part in a ludicrous photo op. Mark Carney has nearly lost digits trying to cut wood in some factory or other. Carney himself is much more comfortable playing road hockey with a bunch of 10-year-olds, which is what he did in Truro, Nova Scotia on whichever day that was, maybe Monday. His only concern, he said, was that he might take out one of the kids, so for that day at least it was elbows down. The rule on any tour is never turn down the chance to eat, drink, or visit a bathroom that isn't moving. Exposure to normal voters and fresh air is strictly circumscribed. Access to too much alcohol and fried chicken is unbounded. The reporters seem younger and more respectful than they used to, but then again I was sharing a bus in those days with people like Richard the Badger Brennan, who was apt to climb on the bus and inquire, is that the smell of fresh brewed coffee or liberal arrogance? I've travelled on 3 campaigns covering Justin Trudeau, 4 with Stephen Harper. I was in the Rockies with Andrew Scheer and watched Jagmeet Singh longboard on the tarmac in Halifax. And once I found a quiet time to write a column on a bench in Kelowna. At the end of the 2004 campaign, I vividly remember waking up in the Maritimes. This was with the Paul Martin campaign. We then travelled to Chester, Nova Scotia, where Martin dipped his toe in the Atlantic. We then headed to Vancouver with stops in Gatineau, Toronto and Winnipeg. And we had a end of tour dinner at 2 a.m. on the West Coast, while Martin went to dip his toe in the Pacific. Then we all hopped back on a plane and headed back to Montreal. Reporters on that day were trying to find out whether they could claim overtime for a 25-hour day. So why do we do it? There really is no substitute for watching the pretenders for the job of Prime Minister up close as they deal with the slings and arrows that inevitably come with a campaign. The leader's tour is still the focus for election campaigns, and polling numbers tend to rise when the leader comes to town. Carney's shown remarkable energy for a 60-year-old, but then he was up at the gym at 4:45 on the day that I met him in Quebec City. This is the culmination of his life's work, and the adrenaline is clearly flowing. And that is not always the case. I remember watching Stéphane Dion and Michael Ignatieff as they ran for the job of Prime Minister in 2008 and 2011 respectively. It was obvious that neither was cut out for the job. They lived in bubbles of their own self-delusion half the time. One Liberal told me that he saw Ignatieff collapse exhausted in the green room after working a room full of supporters. Trudeau is a natural at the performative side of politics, but it did not come easily to Ignatieff. Carney does not have the muscle memory of a seasoned campaigner either, particularly in French. His speech in Laval on Tuesday was rather flat people started to wander out long before the end, or they were talking among themselves. He really needs to have a rousing closing rally, I guess wrapping himself in the flag, which is what he's been doing for most of the campaign. He's got a rally on Saturday in the GTA, and he needs to close out the campaign if he's going to end up with a majority, which is what he's now fighting for, because I think, as far as winning, that seems to be in the bag. Because of that, there's a weightlessness to the Liberal campaign at the moment. It's not scientific, but there is a whiff of pheromones around winning campaigns. They tend to strut around like stray cats, and hard as they try, the Liberals are trying not to strut around like stray cats, but as the Badger once put it, Liberal arrogance is their kryptonite.